As they stood in comfortable silence, James Harrington stepped out onto the terrace. He hesitated when he saw them, then approached with a determined expression. "Ms. Chen, Maria. Could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Lily raised an eyebrow at Maria, who nodded. "I'll be right inside," Lily said, leaving them alone. James looked uncomfortable. "I want to apologize again, not just for tonight, but for how you've been treated since moving here. Victoria can be focused on social standings." "I've noticed," Maria said dryly. He sighed. "The truth is we're facing some financial challenges. The market downturn hit my firm hard. Nothing catastrophic, but enough that we should be cutting back, not throwing lavish galas." Maria studied him curiously. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I respected you before I knew who you were. At the association meetings, you handled Victoria's comments with grace. You didn't throw money around to prove yourself." He ran a hand through his hair. "I guess I'm wondering how you do it. Live simply when you could have anything." "It's what I value," Maria replied. "My grandfather grew up poor. Even after the company took off, he kept his old habits. He taught me that wealth is a tool, not an identity." James nodded slowly. "Victoria won't understand that. She's built her whole life around appearances. And you?" He looked thoughtful. "I used to love the work itself, helping clients secure their futures, watching smart investments grow. Somewhere along the way, it became about the house and the cars and the status." He glanced back toward the gala. "I should get back before she sends a search party." As James left, Maria took a moment to collect herself. The evening had turned out even more dramatic than she'd anticipated. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. "Congratulations on the deal. How's the gala going?" "Interesting," she texted back. "I've suddenly become very popular." When Maria finally returned to the dining room, she found that her place card had been moved to the head table, right next to Victoria. The woman who had snubbed her for months was now beaming at her as if they were old friends. "Maria, darling, we were worried you'd left." Victoria patted the chair beside her. "I've been telling everyone how close we've become since you moved to the neighborhood. Remember that lovely brunch at my home?" Maria did remember. The backhanded comments, the deliberate exclusion, the whispers about her clothes and car. She took her seat, aware of all eyes on her. "How could I forget?" she replied with a slight smile. The first course arrived, and Victoria immediately launched into a dramatic rewriting of history. "I knew there was something special about you from the start. I always told James, didn't I, darling? I said Maria Chen is someone to watch." James nearly choked on his wine, but managed a non-committal nod. "And your company's acquisition is just fascinating," Victoria continued. $5 billion. I'd love to hear all about it. Perhaps you could speak at my charity luncheon next month? We support the arts, you know. So important for the community." Maria took a sip of water. "Actually, I've been thinking about community support. Westlake has so much wealth, but what are we doing for education? For families who can't afford private schools or tutors?" Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Well, that's more of a government concern, isn't it? Our focus has always been on maintaining property values and neighborhood aesthetics. Perhaps it's time to broaden that focus," Maria suggested. "A community isn't just about how it looks, but how it supports all its members." Around the table, several people nodded in agreement. Maria noticed that the dynamics had shifted. Victoria was no longer the unquestioned authority in the room. By the time dessert was served, Maria had fielded dozens of questions about her business, deflected numerous invitations to exclusive events, and received business cards from half the room. Everyone wanted to connect with the tech CEO who had been hiding in plain sight. The silent auction winners were announced, and a hush fell over the room when Maria's bid for the rare book was revealed. $200,000, with the condition that the funds establish an educational foundation, the auctioneer announced. "A new record for our gala and a new direction for our community giving." Applause broke out, though Victoria's was notably less enthusiastic than others. Her carefully curated beautification fund had just been redirected by the neighbors she'd been mocking for months. As the evening wound down, Lily found Maria again. "Ready to escape?" Maria nodded gratefully. "More than ready." They slipped out while Victoria was distracted by other guests. In the parking lot, Maria's modest sedan sat among the luxury cars, a visual reminder of the evening's revelations. "You know you're going to be the talk of Westlake for months," Lily said as they walked to their cars. Probably, Maria agreed, but maybe for better reasons now. Are you going to buy a fancy new car to fit in? Lily teased. Maria patted the hood of her reliable sedan. This one still runs perfectly. Besides, she added with a small smile, I think Westlake could use a reminder that worth isn't measured by price tags. As Maria drove home, she thought about her grandfather and what he would make of the evening's events. He had always told her that money revealed people's true characters, both those who had it and those who wanted it. Tonight had proven him right once again. The morning after the gala, Maria woke to her phone buzzing constantly with notifications. News of the Chen Innovations acquisition had officially broken, and her inbox was flooded with congratulatory messages from business associates. More surprising were the dozens of connection requests on social media from Westlake residents who had barely acknowledged her existence before last night. She ignored them all and made herself a simple breakfast, enjoying the quiet of her kitchen. The revelation of her identity would change things in Westlake, but she was determined not to let it change her. By mid-morning, the doorbell began ringing. First came a massive flower arrangement with Victoria Harrington's card attached. To our most distinguished neighbor, looking forward to our growing friendship. Maria placed it on her porch for the delivery person to take back. Wrong address, she told them with a smile. Next came a fruit basket from the neighborhood association, then a wine delivery from Diane Parker, and finally a handwritten invitation to a private dinner party at the Wilsons' home. Maria accepted each with polite thanks but no promises. Around noon, her phone rang. It was Lily. Have you seen it yet? Lily asked without preamble. Seen what? Victoria's social media. She posted a photo from last night with her arm around you, the one taken during the auction. The caption says, celebrating my dear friend Maria Chen's incredible business success. So proud to have this brilliant woman in our Westlake family. Maria couldn't help but laugh. That's creative rewriting of history. It gets better. She's changed her profile to say she mentors women in business now. Lily's voice dripped with amusement. The comments are full of Westlake residents suddenly claiming they always knew you were special. I'm not surprised, Maria said. People see what they want to see. So what's your plan now? Are you going to buy a mansion and a fleet of luxury cars to show them all up? Actually, I've been thinking about something different. Are you free for coffee later? I'd like your opinion on an idea. They met at a small cafe away from Westlake, where Maria was less likely to be recognized by neighbors. After they ordered, Maria pulled out a tablet and showed Lily a rough proposal she'd sketched out that morning. A Westlake Community Foundation? Lily read aloud. Focused on education, entrepreneurship, and economic opportunity. She looked up. You're serious about this, Maria nodded. The auction bid was just the beginning. Westlake has incredible resources, not just money, but skills, connections, experience. What if we channeled that towards something meaningful? And you think Victoria and her crowd will go for this? They care about fountains and sculptures, not scholarships and small business grants. Some will, some won't. But last night showed me that influence in Westlake can be redirected. Maria took a sip of her coffee. I'm planning to host a community meeting at my company headquarters next week. Would you help me organize it? Lily grinned. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss watching Victoria pretend she's always cared about economic equity. The following week was a whirlwind. Maria's acquisition made national business news, with her face appearing on magazine covers and financial news shows. In Westlake, her status shifted overnight from outsider to celebrity. Residents who had previously ignored her now went out of their way to wave or stop for conversation. Her simple gardening sessions in the front yard drew curious onlookers driving by slowly, hoping to catch a glimpse of the secret billionaire next door. Victoria led the charge in reputation rehabilitation. She called Maria daily with invitations to exclusive events and offers to collaborate on community initiatives. Each time, Maria politely deflected, saying she was busy with work, but looking forward to seeing everyone at the community meeting. Behind the scenes, Maria worked with her company's event team to prepare for the meeting. She reserved the Chen Innovations main auditorium, arranged for transportation from Westlake, and prepared a presentation that would challenge her neighbors to think differently about their community's purpose. On the day of the meeting, 3 luxury buses arrived in Westlake to transport residents to Chen Innovations headquarters. Nearly everyone accepted the invitation, partly out of curiosity about Maria's company, partly from fear of being left out of whatever new social hierarchy was forming. Victoria arrived early, dressed as if for a business television appearance, with a leather portfolio and a determined smile. "Maria, darling, I've drafted some thoughts on potential collaborations between the neighborhood association and your foundation idea. I'd be honored to take a leadership role, given my extensive experience with community organizing." "Thank you, Victoria." "We'll be discussing roles during the presentation," Maria replied neutrally. She'd expected this power move. The Chen Innovations campus impressed even the wealthiest Westlake residents. The sleek, sustainable building featured cutting-edge technology, an open floor plan filled with natural light, and walls showcasing the company's numerous patents and awards. Staff members led small tour groups through selected areas before everyone gathered in the auditorium. Maria noticed James Harrington hanging back from Victoria's side, observing the operations with genuine interest rather than social calculation. When their eyes met, he gave her a respectful nod. Once everyone was seated, Maria took the stage. Without flashy introductions or self-promotion, she began her presentation. "Thank you all for coming today. For those who don't know me well, which is most of you," a knowing chuckle rippled through the audience, "I'm Maria Chen. Before I was CEO of this company, I was my grandfather's gardening assistant, math student, and chess opponent. He built this company from nothing, and his greatest lesson to me wasn't about business strategy or technology patents. It was about purpose." She clicked to a slide showing a simple quote. "Wealth without purpose is just expensive emptiness." Westlake is one of the wealthiest communities in the region. We have more resources, connections, and opportunities than most people will see in a lifetime. The question I want us to consider today is, what are we doing with that privilege? For the next 30 minutes, Maria outlined her vision for the Westlake Community Foundation. Instead of focusing exclusively on neighborhood aesthetics, the foundation would establish programs for educational support, small business mentorship, and community service. Residents could contribute not just money but skills and time. "Many of you have built successful careers or businesses," Maria continued. "Imagine the impact if we shared that knowledge with young people who have talent but lack opportunities. Imagine if Westlake became known not just for its beautiful homes and gardens, but for creating pathways to success for the next generation." From her seat in the front row, Victoria raised her hand with a tight smile. "This all sounds very noble, Maria, but our association has always focused on maintaining property values through beautification projects. That's what our members expect." Actually, James Harrington spoke up unexpectedly, as someone who's been a resident for 15 years. "I think it's time we expanded our vision." He turned to address the room. "Many of us built our success from the ground up. We didn't start with advantages. Maybe it's time we created some advantages for others." Victoria stared at her husband in shock. He had never publicly disagreed with her before. A thoughtful discussion followed, with more residents expressing interest in Maria's vision than Victoria had clearly expected. By the end of the presentation, a steering committee had formed to develop the foundation's structure and programs. To Victoria's visible disappointment, Maria suggested James as committee chair, citing his financial expertise and community tenure. "Of course, Victoria, your experience with event planning will be invaluable for fundraising galas," Maria added, offering a diplomatic compromise. After the formal presentation, residents mingled over refreshments. Maria found herself approached by neighbors who had previously avoided her. "I never introduced myself properly before," said an older man who lived down the street. "I'm Dr. Ray Wong. My wife and I have been running a small weekend science program for local kids. Your foundation idea could help us expand it." Similar conversations happened throughout the room, residents sharing small community efforts they'd been working on quietly, now encouraged to bring them into the open. Victoria made one last attempt to position herself at the center of the new initiative, cornering Maria by the refreshment table. "We should meet for lunch this week to align our messaging about the foundation," she said, her voice honeyed but her eyes calculating. "As the neighborhood association president, I'll need to be the primary liaison, of course." Maria regarded her thoughtfully. "Victoria, I have a question. Why did you treat me so differently before you knew about my company?" Victoria blinked, momentarily thrown by the directness. I don't know what you mean. I've always been welcoming to all residents. You mocked my car, my clothes, and my home. You questioned my ability to afford basic services. You excluded me from conversations and encouraged others to do the same. Maria's tone wasn't angry, just matter of fact. Now you want to be the face of a foundation based on treating all people with dignity and creating opportunities regardless of background. Victoria's face flushed. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. I believe people can change, Maria continued more gently. But change starts with honesty. If you want to be part of building something meaningful in Westlake, it needs to come from a genuine place, not a desire to maintain social status. For a moment, Victoria's carefully constructed facade cracked. Something vulnerable and perhaps even shameful flickered across her face. I don't know how to be valuable without being important, she admitted quietly. Maria nodded. That's a starting point we can work with. As the event wound down, Lily joined Maria on the edge of the room. Looks like your foundation idea is taking off. Victoria must be seething that James got the committee chair position. Actually, I think something interesting might be happening with the Harringtons. Maria nodded toward where James and Victoria were having an intense but not hostile conversation in the corner. Sometimes it takes a shake-up for people to reevaluate what matters. On the bus ride back to Westlake, Maria sat alone, watching her neighbors with new perspective. Some had shown their true colors through consistent kindness regardless of her status. Others had revealed their character through their treatment of someone they perceived as less valuable. And some perhaps were being given a chance to discover better versions of themselves. The foundation launched officially a month later, with its first initiative being a technology education program for underserved schools. Westlake residents surprised Maria with their enthusiasm once they had a meaningful channel for their resources and skills. Even Victoria found her place, applying her perfectionism and attention to detail to organizing the foundation's record-keeping systems. 6 months after the gala that had changed everything, Maria hosted a small dinner party at her still modest home. Her garden was finally finished, a blend of her grandfather's traditional techniques and her own modern touches. Around her table sat the people who had become her true Westlake family: Lily, the Wongs, the Thompsons, and a few others who had shown kindness before her revelation. James Harrington came representing the foundation committee, without Victoria, who was home with a cold. Over dessert, he shared updates on the foundation's progress and then raised his glass. To Maria, he said, who reminded us that true worth isn't measured by what we have, but by what we give, and who we are when no one's watching. As glasses clinked, Maria thought of her grandfather. He would have approved of how things had turned out, not because she had proven anything to those who judged her, but because she had remained true to herself throughout. In the end, that was the only wealth that really mattered. The irony made her smile. Her grandfather would have appreciated the situation. True character, he always said, is revealed by how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. As Maria prepared for the meeting, she wondered how the neighborhood would react when they discovered who she really was. But for now, she was content to observe them as they revealed who they truly were, judging books by their covers and missing the valuable stories. Inside, the neighborhood association meeting was held in the Westlake Community Center, a building that looked more like a small palace than a meeting space. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and oil paintings of past association presidents lined the walls. Maria arrived exactly on time, not wanting to give Victoria any reason to single her out. The room was already packed with residents sitting in neat rows of chairs. Victoria stood at the front beside a projector screen, shuffling papers importantly. Her husband James sat in the front row, absorbed in his phone. Maria spotted Lily waving from the middle section and took the empty seat beside her. "Ready for the Victoria Harrington show?" Lily whispered. "Is that what this is?" "Oh yes, she lives for these meetings." Watch how she manages to turn everything into either a personal accomplishment or someone else's failure. Victoria tapped the microphone. "Welcome everyone to our monthly association meeting. We have several important items on the agenda tonight, including property standards enforcement, the upcoming summer gala," and to her gaze landed directly on Maria, a reminder about community expectations for new residents. For the next hour, Victoria dominated the meeting. She presented budget reports that somehow highlighted her own financial acumen, outlined social events she would be hosting, and repeatedly referenced certain properties that weren't meeting Westlake standards. We've noticed several homes with inadequate landscaping, Victoria announced, a slideshow of photos appearing behind her. None showed Maria's house directly, but the implication was clear from Victoria's pointed glances. Remember, we all signed agreements to maintain our properties to specific standards. It reflects on all of us when these standards slip. Maria kept her expression neutral, though internally she was tallying the pettiness. In the corporate world, she'd faced sexism, ageism, and cutthroat competition, but never this kind of coordinated social bullying. When Victoria opened the floor for questions, a hand shot up from a man in an expensive golf shirt. I've noticed that some residents aren't participating in our community traditions. Maybe new homeowners should receive a more thorough orientation. He looked directly at Maria. Victoria smiled approvingly. Excellent suggestion, Thomas. Perhaps we should create a welcome committee to ensure new residents understand our expectations. Another woman stood up. Speaking of new residents, shouldn't everyone introduce themselves properly? I don't think we all know each other. Again, eyes turned to Maria. It was orchestrated, Maria realized. Victoria had primed her friends to isolate and pressure the outsider. Before Victoria could respond, James Harrington looked up from his phone with a frown. Let's stick to the agenda, shall we? We still have the budget vote and the fountain maintenance to discuss. Victoria looked momentarily thrown by her husband's intervention, but quickly recovered. Of course, darling. We can discuss the welcome committee another time. After the meeting, Maria tried to slip out quickly, but Victoria intercepted her at the door. Maria, dear, I noticed you didn't contribute to the discussion. We do value everyone's input here. Her smile was sharp as glass. I'm still learning how things work in Westlake, Maria replied evenly. But thank you for your thorough presentation. Victoria's eyes narrowed at the subtle emphasis. We have standards to maintain. I hope you're planning to address your landscaping soon. The association can recommend services, though they can be quite expensive. I appreciate the concern, Maria said. I've been busy with work, but my garden will be addressed soon. Work, Victoria repeated as if the word tasted strange. What is it you do again? Something in sales? The dismissive tone made it clear Victoria had already decided Maria's career couldn't possibly be important. I'm in technology, Maria said simply, choosing not to elaborate. How fascinating, Victoria replied without interest. Well, the summer gala is in 2 weeks. It's our biggest event of the year, black tie, of course. I do hope you can find something appropriate to wear. She glanced meaningfully at Maria's modest outfit before gliding away to join her friends. Lily appeared at Maria's side. Wow, she's really fixated on you, apparently. The summer gala is actually worth attending despite Victoria. Open bar, good food, and the silent auction items are amazing. Will everyone be as welcoming as tonight? Maria asked dryly. Probably worse. Everyone goes all out. Designer gowns, jewelry that needs its own security team. Victoria treats it like the Met Gala. Maria nodded thoughtfully. Then I shouldn't miss it. The next morning, Maria was at her office by 6. The merger was entering its final phase, and she had back-to-back meetings with lawyers, board members, and PR consultants. Her assistant knocked on the door mid-afternoon. The reporter from Business Monthly is here for your interview. Maria nodded, quickly reviewing her talking points for the acquisition announcement. The reporter, a woman in her 30s named Tara Wong, shook Maria's hand with genuine respect. It's an honor to meet you, Miss Chen. Your company's growth under your leadership has been remarkable. Thank you. Please call me Maria. This acquisition is going to shake up the industry. $5 billion is a bold move. For the next hour, they discussed the business strategy behind the acquisition, Maria's vision for the company's future, and the technical innovations that set Chen Innovations apart from competitors. As they were wrapping up, Tara hesitated. There's one more angle I'd like to explore. You're notoriously private about your personal life. Our readers would love to know more about Maria Chen beyond the boardroom. Maria smiled politely but firmly. I prefer to keep the focus on the business, of course. But you recently moved to Westlake, correct? That's quite a change from your previous downtown address. Maria tensed slightly. How did you know that? Research, Tara smiled. Nothing invasive, I promise. Property records are public. Westlake is known for its particular social environment. Has that been an adjustment? Every community has its own culture, Maria said diplomatically. Our profile would be more compelling with a personal element. Perhaps a photo at your home, just to show the human side of one of the most powerful women in tech? Maria considered the request. The acquisition announcement would make headlines regardless, but Tara was right. Personal details made for more engaging press. Still, she valued her privacy, especially with the Westlake situation unfolding. Let's compromise, Maria suggested. One personal question, and we can take photos in my office and the company garden, but not at my home. Tara looked disappointed but nodded. Fair enough. So what does one of the wealthiest tech CEOs in the country do to relax? Maria smiled. I garden, actually. My grandfather taught me. There's something grounding about working with your hands. After the interview, Maria reviewed her calendar for the next week. The merger paperwork would be signed on Monday, the press release would go out Tuesday morning, and the Business Monthly cover story would hit on Wednesday. By Thursday, everyone in Westlake would know exactly who she was and what she was worth. The timing aligned perfectly with Victoria's precious summer gala on Saturday night. Meanwhile, across town, James Harrington sat in his office staring at financial reports with growing concern. The market downturn had hit his investment firm hard, and several major clients had withdrawn their funds. The Harringtons' personal investments were down 40%, and their cash reserves were dwindling. Victoria's spending hadn't slowed. The summer gala alone was costing them 6 figures, not counting her new gown and jewelry. Their oldest son's tuition at an Ivy League school was due next month. The vacation house in Aspen had a leaking roof that needed immediate repair. James loosened his tie and poured himself a scotch. They weren't ruined, not yet, but changes would have to be made. Victoria wouldn't take it well. Their entire social standing was built on the appearance of effortless wealth. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Caterer needs another $5,000 for the gala. Approved? James sighed and texted back. Approved. They'd figure it out somehow. They always did. The night before the gala, Maria received a package from her tailor. Inside was a simple but elegantly cut black gown, expensive in material and craftsmanship but understated in design. She'd ordered it weeks ago before Victoria's campaign of subtle mockery had begun. Now, she wondered if she should wear something more obviously high-end, just to see the looks on their faces when they realized their mistake. But that wasn't her style. Her grandfather had built a tech empire from nothing while living in a modest house and driving the same car for 20 years. Let your work speak for itself, he always said. The night of the gala arrived with perfect summer weather. The Westlake Country Club was transformed with twinkling lights, flowing champagne, and music from a live orchestra. Women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos mingled on the terrace overlooking the golf course. Maria arrived alone, her simple black dress complemented only by her grandfather's watch and small diamond earrings. She could feel eyes turning as she entered. The outsider had dared to show up again. Victoria, wearing a dramatic red gown, with a plunging neckline and diamonds dripping from her ears and throat, intercepted her immediately. Maria, you made it. Her gaze swept over Maria's understated outfit with barely concealed disappointment. What a classic choice. I don't think I've seen that designer before. Is it off the rack? It was made for me, Maria replied simply. Victoria's smile tightened. How resourceful. Well, enjoy the evening. We have an excellent silent auction this year, though some items might be a bit above certain budgets. She glided away to greet more important guests. Maria made her way to the bar, where she found Lily in a midnight blue gown. You clean up nice, Lily grinned. So do you. Having fun yet? I'm on my second champagne, so getting there. Fair warning, Victoria has been telling everyone that you're some kind of discount furniture-buying, off-brand wearing charity case who can't afford the gardener. Maria laughed. That's almost creative. The best part is she's doing it while her husband is quietly selling off their assets. My brother works in finance. Word is Harrington Investments lost some major clients recently. Maria raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. As they chatted, James Harrington approached the bar. He nodded politely to both women. Evening, ladies? Enjoying the gala? It's lovely, Maria said. James studied her with unexpected intensity. You look familiar. Have We met before the neighborhood events. Before Maria could answer, Victoria appeared, practically yanking her husband away. James, the mayor, just arrived. You need to greet him. As the evening progressed, Maria noticed Victoria becoming increasingly flustered. She was drinking more champagne than usual and checking her phone constantly. Something was off with the perfectly polished facade. The answer came during dinner. Victoria, glass in hand, clinked for attention and began a slightly slurred welcome speech. As she rambled about community standards and Westlake traditions, she stumbled over her words. Then, turning to where Maria sat with Lily, she added, "And we welcome all residents, even those who might find our lifestyle aspirational rather than achievable." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. Some guests shifted awkwardly in their seats. Just then, Victoria's phone buzzed loudly. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. She excused herself abruptly, leaving the speech unfinished. Across the table, James Harrington's phone buzzed as well. He looked at the screen, then up at Maria with a shocked expression of recognition. The Business Monthly preview had just hit the online news feeds, 2 days early. The headline read, "Tech titan Maria Chen leads historic $5 billion acquisition." A strange hush fell over the gala. All around the room, phones were lighting up with notifications. People who moments ago had been ignoring Maria were now staring openly, their expressions cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning realization. Lily leaned over to Maria. "What's happening?" Before Maria could answer, James Harrington approached their table, his face pale. He held up his phone, showing the Business Monthly article with Maria's professional headshot prominently displayed. "You're that Maria Chen?" His voice carried in the sudden quiet. "The CEO of Chen Innovations?" Maria nodded simply. "Yes." The murmuring grew louder. Chen Innovations was a household name, a tech giant valued at over $50 billion. Its CEO was known for being brilliant, private, and one of the wealthiest self-made women in the country. And she'd been living among them, driving a used car and wearing department store clothes, while they mocked her budget and questioned her ability to afford landscaping. Victoria returned to the room, her face flushed from what appeared to be a heated phone call. She stopped abruptly when she noticed the changed atmosphere and her husband standing by Maria's table. "What's going on?" she demanded. James turned to her, still holding up his phone. "Victoria, do you know who Maria Chen is?" Victoria glanced between the phone and Maria, irritation crossing her face. "She's the new resident who can't be bothered to maintain proper landscaping." "Why?" "She's the CEO of Chen Innovations," James said flatly. "The tech company, the one worth billions." Victoria's champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. That's not possible." "It's true," a man at a nearby table confirmed, holding up his own phone. "The Business Monthly article just went live early. She just led a $5 billion acquisition." All eyes turned to Maria, who remained seated calmly, sipping her water. She'd expected the news to come out during the gala, though not quite this dramatically. Victoria recovered quickly, her social instincts kicking in. She plastered on a bright smile and hurried over to Maria's table. "Maria, what a wonderful surprise. You should have told us about your impressive career." Her voice was overly warm, her eyes calculating. "We're all so honored to have such an accomplished neighbor." The naked hypocrisy was almost comical. Less than an hour ago, Victoria had been making thinly veiled jabs about Maria's finances. It didn't seem relevant to neighborhood association meetings. Maria replied evenly. Victoria laughed too loudly. "Always so modest. We must have you speak at our next business luncheon. The women of Westlake would love to hear about your journey." Other residents began to gather around, suddenly eager to introduce themselves properly to the woman they'd been whispering about for months. "We should get together for dinner soon," said Diane Parker, who had previously snickered about Maria's car. "My firm manages investments for several tech executives," offered Thomas Winters, who had questioned her commitment to community traditions. Maria acknowledged them politely but didn't go out of her way to engage. Beside her, Lily was trying not to laugh at the sudden change in everyone's behavior. The orchestra began playing again, but no one was dancing. The room had reorganized. itself around Maria's table, with people jostling for position to speak with her. Victoria hovered nearby, clearly panicking about losing control of her own event. James Harrington managed to get close enough to speak privately to Maria. "I apologize for any misunderstandings since you moved in. If I had recognized you sooner." "Would it have mattered?" Maria asked quietly. "Should it matter?" James had the grace to look embarrassed. Fair point. The silent auction was all but forgotten until the organizer announced the final minutes for bidding. Suddenly, Victoria brightened. "Maria, you must see the special item we've added this year." She practically dragged Maria to the auction tables where a display featured a rare first edition book signed by a famous author. The current bid was $50,000. Victoria's name was on the bid sheet. "This would be perfect for someone like you," Victoria gushed. "A true collector's item." Maria studied the book thoughtfully. It was indeed valuable, though Victoria's transparent attempt to get her to outbid the existing offer was painfully obvious. "The proceeds go to the Westlake Beautification Fund," Victoria added, her voice honeyed. "Such an important cause." Maria looked up from the book. "What exactly does the Beautification Fund support?" "Oh, wonderful community projects. The new fountain last year, the sculpture we're commissioning this year. Any educational programs? Scholarships, community services?" Victoria blinked, thrown off script. "Well, no, but the aesthetic value of our public spaces is—" "I see." Maria picked up a pen and wrote a number on the bid sheet that made Victoria's eyes widen. $200,000. Next to it, she added a condition. "Provided the funds are directed to establishing a Westlake Educational Foundation for local students." As Maria walked away from the stunned Victoria, the auctioneer announced that dinner would be served. The seating arrangement had been carefully planned by Victoria, with Maria originally placed at a table far from the center of the room. Now, there was a flurry of activity as people tried to switch place cards to sit near her. Maria caught Lily's eye across the room and tilted her head toward the exit. Lily nodded, understanding the silent request, and they met on the terrace outside. "So," Lily said once they were alone, "CEO of a tech giant. That's a detail you left out over coffee." Maria smiled apologetically. "I like my privacy." The look on Victoria's face was worth every second of the snide comments we've endured. Lily shook her head in amazement. "Why didn't you just tell everyone who you were from the beginning? It would have saved you months of their nonsense." Maria looked out over the darkened golf course. "My grandfather built our company from nothing. He taught me that true character is revealed in how people treat you when they think you have nothing to offer them." She turned back to Lily. "You were kind from the first day, without knowing anything about my business or bank account. And Victoria was awful from day one, and now she's your biggest fan." Lily snorted. "Though I'm betting she's having quite the crisis right now, realizing all the things she said to one of the richest women in the country. Inside, they could see Victoria moving frantically from table to table, likely doing damage control. Her carefully constructed social hierarchy had just been upended. "Should we rescue her from her misery and go back in?" Lily asked. "In a minute. I'm enjoying the fresh air." What she didn't say was that tomorrow she would be finalizing a deal that would reshape the tech industry, while Victoria and her friends were still gossiping about her shoes. Her grandfather had always told her, "Let them underestimate you. Success doesn't need an audience until it's achieved." She drove home in her practical car to her half-unpacked house, already planning how she would use that dinner to benefit the local youth center instead of impressing Victoria's crowd. This was just the beginning of her story in Westlake, and Maria Chen had never been one to back down from a challenge. The week after the charity gala, Maria found a cream-colored envelope in her mailbox. Inside was an invitation to Victoria Harrington's exclusive garden brunch that weekend. She turned it over in her hands, wondering if it had been delivered by mistake. After their interaction at the gala, she doubted Victoria actually wanted her there. Her phone rang. It was Lily Wu, the only friendly face from the event. "Did you get one too?" Lily asked without preamble. "The brunch invitation?" "Yes, surprised, to be honest," Lily laughed. "Don't be. You're the talk of the neighborhood after that auction bid." Victoria would rather keep you where she can see you than wonder what you're up to. Maria sighed. So it's not a peace offering? More like reconnaissance. But you should come. I'll be there and I could use an ally who doesn't care about designer labels. After hanging up, Maria stared at the invitation again. Part of her wanted to ignore it and focus on work. The merger negotiations were at a critical stage, and she had a video call with investors in Singapore that night. But something made her want to stand her ground in the strange social battlefield. Saturday morning arrived with perfect blue skies. Maria chose a simple sundress and flat sandals, comfortable but neat. As she drove to Victoria's house, she reminded herself that she faced tougher opponents in boardrooms every day. Victoria's home was exactly what Maria expected, a sprawling mansion with manicured gardens and a circular driveway filled with luxury cars. A valet approached as she pulled up in her modest sedan. "Is this for the event, ma'am?" he asked, clearly confused by her car. "Yes, it is." She handed him the keys and pretended not to notice his surprise. The backyard was transformed into something from a magazine spread. White tables dotted the lawn, each with fresh flower centerpieces. A string quartet played softly near a fountain. Waiters circulated with champagne flutes and tiny appetizers. Victoria spotted her immediately. "Maria, you made it!" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "What a practical car you drive." "It gets me where I need to go," Maria replied. "How sensible." Victoria's gaze swept over Maria's outfit. "We're so casual today, aren't we? Come, let me introduce you to everyone." What followed was a parade of introductions clearly designed to make Maria feel out of place. Each person Victoria introduced seemed to have a more impressive title, a more exclusive vacation home, or a more expensive hobby than the last. "This is Patricia. She just returned from her villa in Tuscany. This is Robert. He keeps his yacht in Monaco. This is Heather. Her jewelry collection was featured in Vogue last year." Maria smiled and shook hands, watching as each person subtly assessed her worth based on her clothes and demeanor, and found her lacking. Eventually, Victoria steered her toward a table at the edge of the party, far from the center where Victoria's closest friends sat. "You can sit here with Lily and the Thompsons. I think you'll find you have common interests." The implication was clear. This was the table for those who didn't quite fit Victoria's standards. Lily was already seated, looking bored. She brightened when she saw Maria. "Thank goodness. I was about to fake a work emergency." "Is it always like this?" Maria asked quietly as she sat down. "No, sometimes it's worse." Lily rolled her eyes. "Last month, Victoria asked me what year my handbag was from, then said, 'Oh, vintage is so brave.'" Maria laughed despite herself. The other couple at their table introduced themselves as Ben and Grace Thompson. They seemed nice enough, if a bit reserved. "You're new to the neighborhood?" Grace asked Maria. "Moved in about 3 months ago. Still getting settled." "We've been here 5 years and still feel like outsiders," Ben admitted. "I'm just a dentist, not a hedge fund manager or tech executive, so we're barely tolerated." "What do you do, Maria?" Grace asked. Before Maria could answer, Victoria appeared with a champagne flute in hand. "Everyone enjoying themselves?" "Maria, dear, we're discussing the annual membership dues for the Neighborhood Association. It's quite substantial, I'm afraid. We were wondering if perhaps you'd need an extension for your first payment." Her voice carried just enough to draw attention from nearby tables. The conversation around them quieted. Maria felt everyone watching, waiting for her response. The trap was obvious. Either admit financial strain or be forced to justify herself. "That's thoughtful, Victoria, but I manage my finances carefully." "When are they due?" Maria kept her voice even. Victoria looked disappointed at the lack of reaction. "Next month. It's $5,000 for the year. That won't be a problem." Maria sipped her water calmly. Victoria lingered a moment longer, then moved on to the next table. The conversations around them resumed, but Maria noticed several people glancing her way. "That was her trying to embarrass you," Lily whispered. "She did the same to us our first year." The rest of the brunch followed a similar pattern. Victoria or one of her friends would stop by their table with questions or comments designed to highlight Maria's outsider status. They asked about her quaint house, wondered aloud if she'd found discount furniture, and speculated about which public school her non-existent children might attend. Maria weathered it all with the same calm she used in tough negotiations. She'd learned long ago that reacting emotionally only gave opponents power. During dessert, a tall man in an expensive suit approached their table. "You must be Maria Chen. I'm James Harrington, Victoria's husband." Maria shook his hand. "Nice to meet you. Victoria tells me you're new to the area. What brings you to Westlake?" His smile seemed more genuine than his wife's, a change of pace. "I wanted somewhere quieter. And what line of work are you in?" Before Maria could answer, Victoria appeared at her husband's side. "James, darling, the Wilsons are asking about your new boat." She practically pulled him away, shooting Maria a warning glance. "That was weird," Lily commented after they left. "Is he always that friendly?" Maria asked James. "He's actually decent when Victoria isn't around. His investment firm is supposed to be one of the best in the region. Victoria never lets him talk to new women without supervision, though." After brunch, Maria was collecting her car from the valet when she overheard Victoria talking to Diane Parker and another woman from their group. "Did you see her shoes? From some department store, I'm sure. And that dress, off the rack if I ever saw one. I checked her out online. Nothing came up except a LinkedIn profile. She's probably some middle manager who stretched to buy that house. I give her 6 months before she's forced to sell. Remember the Andersons?" They laughed, not realizing Maria was within earshot. The valet pulled up with her car and their laughter grew louder. "Is that a 2014 model? I didn't know they still ran." Maria thanked the valet, tipped him generously, and drove away without acknowledging the women. Their laughter followed her down the driveway. That evening, Maria sat on her porch with a cup of tea thinking about the day. The cruelty had been subtle but persistent, death by 1,000 paper cuts. In her world of business, opponents were direct. This sideways aggression was harder to counter. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "You survived your first Harrington brunch. Want to get coffee sometime without the vultures circling?" Maria smiled and agreed. At least she'd found one genuine person in Westlake. Monday morning brought new challenges. When Maria returned from her morning run, she found an envelope taped to her door. Inside was an invitation to the neighborhood association meeting that night, with a handwritten note. Attendance expected for all residents. Discussions will include property standards enforcement. The implied threat was clear. Victoria was escalating from private mockery to public pressure. That afternoon, Maria received a call from her assistant. "The board approved the acquisition. We can announce next week after the paperwork is signed." "That's excellent news," Maria replied. "Any word from the PR team?" "They've scheduled the press conference and interview with Business Monthly. They're pushing for photos at your home for the successful woman in her element angle." Maria hesitated. She'd kept her professional and personal life separate since moving to Westlake. The moment her identity as CEO of Chen Innovations became public, everything would change. "Let's hold off on home photos for now," she decided. "Office only." After hanging up, Maria looked around her modestly furnished living room. In a week, her company would announce a $5 billion acquisition that would make headlines across the business world. Her net worth would jump significantly, though it was already substantial enough to buy most of Westlake outright. Yet tonight, she would sit in a neighborhood meeting, while Victoria Harrington and her friends looked down on her for her simple clothes and practical car. The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Maria Chen sipped her coffee from a chipped mug she'd owned for years. Her new house was still half unpacked, with cardboard boxes stacked neatly in corners. It was far bigger than she needed, but the school district was excellent, and after the divorce, she wanted a fresh start somewhere peaceful. Maria glanced at her watch, a simple timepiece that had belonged to her grandfather. Unlike the flashy jewelry her new neighbors wore, it held actual meaning. She had 30 minutes before heading to the office. Her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. "Don't forget the neighborhood charity gala tonight." Maria sighed. She'd been putting off attending any community events since moving in 3 months ago. As the CEO of Chen Innovations, her days were packed with meetings and decisions that affected thousands of employees. The last thing she wanted was to make small talk with strangers. But her grandfather had always emphasized the importance of community, and she'd promised herself she would try. "I'll be there," she texted back. Later that evening, Maria parked her 10-year-old sedan a block away from the Westlake Country Club. The lot was filled with gleaming luxury cars that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. She'd never cared much for expensive things, despite having the means to buy anything she wanted. Her grandfather had built his tech empire from nothing, and his humble approach to wealth had shaped her values deeply. She smoothed down her simple black dress, comfortable but nothing special, and walked toward the brightly lit building. Music and laughter spilled out onto the manicured lawn. For a moment she considered turning back. These people weren't her crowd, but she pushed forward, reminding herself that connections mattered even in personal life. At the entrance, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a diamond necklace that caught the light greeted guests. Her smile was practiced and didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to the annual Westlake Charity Gala. I'm Victoria Harrington, head of the Neighborhood Association." Her gaze traveled quickly over Maria's outfit and simple hairstyle, and something flickered across her face. Disappointment, perhaps. Or dismissal. "Maria Chen. I moved into the old Harrison place on Maple Street recently." Maria extended her hand. Victoria's handshake was limp. "Oh yes, the modest colonial. How quaint." She turned away before Maria could respond, calling out to someone else. "Bethany, you look absolutely stunning, darling." Maria stepped into the crowded room, immediately feeling out of place. Everyone seemed to know each other, forming tight circles that were hard to break into. Women draped in designer dresses and men in tailored suits exchanged air kisses and inside jokes. The room sparkled with wealth, from the champagne flowing freely to the auction items displayed on tables around the perimeter. She made her way to the bar and ordered a club soda with lime. The bartender was the first person to smile genuinely at her. "First time at one of these?" he asked, sliding her drink across. "That obvious, huh?" He chuckled. "You're not wearing the uniform." "Uniform? Designer everything, plus that look of bored superiority." He winked and turned to another customer. Maria found a quiet corner where she could observe the room. She'd learned in business that watching people revealed more than talking to them. Victoria moved through the crowd like royalty, her group of friends following closely. They were all cut from the same cloth. Expensive clothes, perfect hair, practiced laughs. A tall woman with auburn hair peeled away from Victoria's group and approached the bar. As she waited for her drink, she noticed Maria. "You look as thrilled to be here as I feel," she said with a half smile. "That transparent?" Maria asked. "I'm Lily Wu. I've been enduring these events for 5 years now." She extended her hand. "Maria Chen. Just moved in." "Ah, fresh meat." Lily grinned. "Fair warning, Victoria's crowd can be a bit selective, I noticed. Is there some secret password I missed?" "More like a minimum bank account requirement and fashion inspection." Lily rolled her eyes. "Don't let them get to you. Half of them are drowning in debt trying to keep up appearances." Before they could talk more, a microphone squealed. Victoria stood on a small stage tapping the mic. "Welcome everyone to our annual charity gala. As you know, this event raises funds for the Westlake Beautification Project." She paused for applause. "Last year we raised enough to install the new fountain in the park. This year, we're hoping to commission a sculpture by the renowned artist Jeffrey Williams." Maria bit back a comment about more practical community needs. Where she grew up, beautification meant basics like playground equipment and safe sidewalks. The speech continued, full of names Maria didn't recognize and references to events she hadn't attended. She felt increasingly isolated despite the crowded room. After Victoria finished, the music resumed and people broke into smaller groups. Maria noticed Victoria and 4 other women glancing her way, whispering behind manicured hands. One laughed a little too loudly. "Don't mind them," Lily said, appearing beside her again. "They do this to every newcomer, especially those who don't immediately try to impress them." "What exactly is their problem?" Maria asked. "You're an unknown quantity. In their world, that's suspicious. Plus," Lily hesitated, "plus what? You're not flashing wealth. That house you bought? The previous owners downsized because they couldn't keep up with the association fees. They assume you're stretching to afford it." Maria almost laughed. If they only knew that she could buy this entire country club without blinking. But her grandfather's voice echoed in her head. "True wealth isn't about showing off. It's about the freedom to live by your values." Across the room, Victoria's group had grown louder. One woman, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than a car, pointed at Maria's shoes and snickered. "That's Diane Parker," Lily whispered, Victoria's second in command. Her husband owns half the car dealerships in the state. Maria took a deep breath. In boardrooms, she commanded respect. Here, she was being treated like an outsider, judged by the most superficial standards imaginable. Victoria approached, flanked by Diane and two others. Their smiles were tight, their eyes calculating. "Maria, darling, we were just discussing the neighborhood garden tour next month. All residents are expected to participate, of course." Victoria's tone made it clear this wasn't a friendly update. "My garden isn't quite ready," Maria said honestly. Between work and unpacking, landscaping had been low on her priority list. "Oh dear," Diane chimed in. "That's unfortunate. The tour is quite the tradition here. People come from all over to see our properties." Another woman leaned forward. "Perhaps you could hire someone. Though quality landscapers are terribly expensive these days." The implication was clear. They assumed she couldn't afford it. "I prefer to do my own gardening," Maria replied calmly. "My grandfather taught me. It's therapeutic." They exchanged glances that spoke volumes. This woman did manual labor by choice? How peculiar. "Well, there's always next year," Victoria said with fake sweetness. Not everyone can manage to keep up with Westlake standards right away. They drifted away, heads close together, whispering and glancing back. Maria remained composed, though inside she felt a flicker of both hurt and irritation. She'd faced sexism and ageism in the tech world, but this petty social hierarchy was somehow more grating. "You handled that well," Lily commented. "Most people either try to impress them or run away crying." "I've dealt with worse." Maria shrugged. "Though usually over billion-dollar contracts, not garden tours." Lily raised an eyebrow but didn't push for details. As the evening wore on, Maria found herself increasingly isolated. People would approach, make brief conversation, then drift away when Victoria's group glanced their way. It was like high school all over again, but with more expensive clothes and better wine. She was about to leave when the auction began. Items ranged from weekend getaways to jewelry to exclusive dining experiences. The bids reached astronomical figures within seconds, and now, the auctioneer announced, a private dinner for 8, prepared by Chef Jean-Michel from Le Ciel, with wine pairings selected by Master Sommelier Thomas Ridge. Victoria's hand shot up immediately. 10,000. The room murmured appreciatively. Without thinking, Maria raised her hand. 15,000. A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to her. Victoria's face tightened, her smile freezing in place. 20,000, Victoria countered, voice sharp. Maria held her gaze. 25,000. The auctioneer looked between them, clearly delighted by the unexpected competition. 25,000 going once. Victoria's husband whispered something in her ear. She frowned but stayed silent. Sold to the new resident on Maple Street, the auctioneer declared. The room buzzed with whispers. Maria felt a small satisfaction at Victoria's shocked expression. It wasn't about the money. It was about refusing to be intimidated. As people began to leave, Maria caught fragments of conversations. Who is she? Where did she come from? How can she afford that house and that bid? Lily caught up with her at the door. That was quite an entrance to Westlake society. You've certainly got their attention now, Maria smiled. Sometimes it's worth reminding people that appearances can be deceiving.